I'm Arlene Herson, and I'm glad you can be with us today because I'd like to introduce you to my cousin, your cousin, everybody's cousin. He calls himself Cousin Brucey. We're not really related, but he's someone you'd be proud to have as a member of your family. There aren't too many people who have become a legend in their own time, but he has done it. Bruce Morrow was one of the biggest stars in radio in the 1960s. He was there when rock and roll was in its heyday. He was there to introduce the Beatles at their first American concert at Shea Stadium. He was there every night, talking to us, listening to us. Now, more than 20 years later, he's still there listening and talking to us, busier and even more popular than ever. Cousin Brucey is everywhere, on the radio 3 times a week on WCBS FM, on television on Good Day New York and Fox News, in the movies, in the box office hit Dirty Dancing, on the bookshelves with his autobiography, in the Radio Hall of Fame, and with the children, working tirelessly for Variety, the children's charity. A man any family would be proud of. Cousin Brucey. Bruce Morrow is my guest. We'll meet him right after these messages, so please stay right there.
From the McGruff files, the case of the Tucson tip-off. In the Midtown area of Tucson, Arizona, things were no doggone good. Burglaries were up, spirits were down, and folks were fed up. So they worked with police to get their neighborhood back. They organized community watch groups. In just 3 weeks, burglaries were down 30%. The people of Tucson are making a difference, and you can too. Write this down, and I'll show you how you can help take a bite out of crime.
People in the National Guard and Reserve make up over 40% of our nation's combat-ready forces. It's a job that requires them to face some very big challenges. So please, don't make their biggest challenge asking you for time off to do their training.
Mr. Aldridge, you, got a minute?
Be a hero. Give your employees the freedom to protect ours.
There are people out there who need help, but don't have anyone with the right skills and knowledge to turn to for help with their taxes. You or your organization can be there for someone who needs help. Volunteer your time, and the IRS will volunteer the training to help make someone's taxes less taxing.
Some people think Social Security is just for retirement.
But if a serious illness or injury puts you out of work, Social Security can pay disability.
Even if you're years from retirement.
And it would pay your family survivor's benefits if somehow your life gets cut short.
So what benefits can you expect? Find out by calling 1-800-2345-SSA.
For your own personal earnings and benefit estimate statement. Social Security, it's not just for retirement.
It's for life.
I'm Arlene Herson, and my very special guest is Cousin Brucey, Bruce Morrow. We're here right in the studio at CBS FM where Bruce does his show. Thank you very much for having us here.
You exhausted me. First of all, I have never heard an intro to me. I mean, that's made me tired. Do I do all those things? I'm exhausted.
You know what? My introductions, I mentioned, aren't normally that long, but you do so much.
You know, it's funny. When you love what you're doing, Arlene, just like you do, you don't realize that you are working 800 hours a day. My days start very early in the morning, and I get involved with all these things, plus many other things we didn't mention, and I don't realize it. And then when I hear people like you talking about it, I say, well, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I better slow down.
No.
But you know something, I can't. I'm not going to kid you. I can't.
No. And we don't expect you to, and you don't want to, and I don't want you to. But however, when you mention you're doing something you love, you had a dream years ago. And it's not often that people's dreams come true, but yours did. I mean, you love radio. You're making your life's career. That's where it started. I mean, you're doing so much more now.
I was put on earth to be a radio. I'm a radio. My first recollection is the seduction, the Cousin Brucey, or Bruce Meyerowitz in those days. My real name is Morrow, but in those days I was Brucey Meyerowitz, East 26th Street in Brooklyn. I was seduced by radio. I remember coming home, I was about 9 years old or thereabouts, in that era. And I was coming home from PS 206 in Brooklyn, and I noticed my mother on the porch. You know, we had a stoop in those days and a porch, and I noticed these ladies were on the porch, Mrs. Flink, Mrs. Bloom, Mrs. Goldberg, and Mrs. McNamara. It was a very mixed neighborhood, as you can see. And they were weeping. And they were listening to this little brown box that said Philco. And I was a kid, I couldn't understand it. And out of the brown box came the following. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, passed away today at Silver Springs, Maryland, so-and-so. I didn't understand the ramifications of our president passing away, but what impressed me and what I always remember to this day is that my mother and Mrs. Flink and Mrs. Bloom and the other ladies were weeping. And that moment I realized that if this little brown box could make those very strong Brooklyn women weep and stay away from preparing the evening meal for their husbands, that's what I had to do. That was my first really emotional, spiritual contact with anything. That was the day I was seduced by radio, and that day I promised myself, Arlene, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, but a lot of people feel that they're going to do that. I happen to have read your book, Cousin Brucey, My Life in Rock and Roll. You made your life out of your love's work. Mm-hmm. But your very first chance to be on the radio was when?
Well, let's see. I go back. I was a very shy kid. Unless you might not believe I was very shy. Matter of fact, I used to pay teachers off not to call for me in school. I used to say, I'll do a work. Don't call me. I don't want to stand up in class. I was very, very nervous. I used to stutter and stammer a little bit. And there was an English teacher, Mrs. Siegel, who said, said, Bruce, I would like you to be part of our dental play. And I said, no, I don't want to be on the stage. So she convinced me to go on the stage, and I won the part of a cavity. So my very first part on stage was a cavity. I've been a cavity ever since in society. A lot of people, but since that day in school, I've never stopped. Just something happened, and then I realized that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to relate to people. And then while I was in high school, instead of taking regular English, they sent me to what we have in New York City called the All-City Radio Workshop. And I believe it's still in existence. They have radio station WNYE-FM at Brooklyn Tech High School, and I stayed with them for 2 years. And that's really where I learned my craft. And I fell in love with radio. I played all kinds of parts, from Paul Bunyan to doing school news. And it was a good thing. It was a nice way to start my life. And I gave up. I was going to be a surgeon. See, I started surgery when I was 3 years old. My parents, at the time I was 4, gave me a surgical kit. And I used to practice surgical simple brain surgery on neighborhood children. But I started losing my patience. And I said, it's not for me. So I went into radio.
Well, okay. But
you believe that?
No, I don't
Good.
believe that. Okay. Because I really believe radio has been so much a part of you. And we feel it. On the air, we feel close to you, and you want us to feel close to you. And when I mentioned you really want us to feel like family, and you call yourself Cousin Brucey, that happened by chance.
No, by chance, and I think it was destined to happen. Radio, and with all due respect, because I love television, I love film, I do a lot of that like you do. There has never been a more intimate medium ever on the face of the earth invented by man's mind. Radio is in your ear. It takes showers. You go to bed with radio. You're in the car with radio. You go shopping. I love radio very, very much. And yes, I want everyone to feel that they know me. And I'll tell you something, Arlene. You and I know each other many years. You walk down the street with me, and people will turn around and just hear my voice and say, hey, Cousin Brucey. And this Cousin Brucey thing is wonderful. And how it happened is one night, I'm talking about 1957, thereabouts, 1958, and one night a little black lady came up to the studio and said to me, do you believe we're all related? And I looked at this little lady. I was playing records in those days. We didn't have digital things and cartridges and all the things we have now at our networks. And I said, excuse me for a moment. I put my record on the turntable, and I said, yes, ma'am, then I can talk. And she said that she's in trouble, and she said, you really believe we're all related? And I said, yeah, I do. She said, well, and this sweet little angelic face, a black lady with white hair, I still see her so clearly, said, cousin, lend me 50 cents to get home. I'm broke. She hit me. And I gave this little old lady 50 cents, saying, well, I better get rid of this lady. I had nothing in common with her. She didn't like, Bruce Morrow. Gave her the money. That night, on the way home, I lived in Brooklyn. I was driving my new car, and I'm so happy. The world was my oyster. I'm on the radio, doing what I've always wanted to do. And a bell. I saw the lights, and the bells went off, and I knew I got my shtick. The word shtick means, handle. I got something to hang on. I went in the next day, and I said to the program director, Mr. Leeds, from now on, I want to be called Cousin Bruce Morrow. And he looked at me and he said, are you crazy? That is the corniest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is not Kansas. This is not Parsippany, New Jersey. This is the Big Apple, man. This is New York City. Cousin. And I looked at him and I said, Mr. Leeds, I'm a New Yorker. I was born in Brooklyn. My whole life has been here. There's nobody cornier than a New Yorker. Now, the word corny to me is nice. That's warm. Hamish. It's a nice feeling. He said, all right, try it moderately tonight. Now, if anybody tells a kid from Brooklyn to try something moderately, that's the worst thing you can do. Trust me, you don't do that. Well, that night I cousined them to death. And the phones rang, and the letters came, and the telegrams. Well, from then on, to this day, my kids call me Cousin Daddy.
Well, I'm glad you're Cousin Brucey, and I'm glad you're here, but I have to say we have to take a break right now, and then we're going to come back and talk some more. We're speaking with Cousin Brucey here at CBS Radio. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
Every year, thousands of babies die from choking, suffocating, or other breathing emergencies. Just imagine how many of them could be saved if only they came with instructions. Please learn American Red Cross Infant and Child CPR. American Red Cross. We help you help others.
There was a time when people helped their neighbors, and together they built a stronger community. This spirit lives on today in NeighborWorks, a unique partnership of local residents, business, and government leaders. NeighborWorks volunteers have rebuilt over 100,000 homes, restoring pride to millions of neighbors. So help a neighbor and a nation. Join NeighborWorks, reversing decline, rebuilding pride.
Just a fraction of what we spend dining out could help pick up the tab for a good cause. A small part of what we spend on sports could help keep our community in shape. Or some of our time on the phone could help answer society's problems. Won't you get involved? By giving 5% of your income and volunteering 5 hours per week, you can really help your community. This year, make it your goal to give 5. What you get back is immeasurable.
The animals in the forest. If they could talk, what would they say? They might say, be careful with fire in the forest. Just like Smokey says, only you can prevent forest fires.
I'm Arlene Herson. We're back here at CBS FM Radio with Cousin Brucey. And actually, you're on CBS now. You've been on ABC, you've been on NBC, but you started on WINS.
WINS. Well, actually, no, we go back further. I started, my first job when I graduated New York University was Bermuda. Like every kid, every aspiring radio performer, television performer, you send out a demo tape. Well, I sent out 13 demo tapes. 6 of them came back, yay. And 7 of them, 6, no, that's right. 7 of them came back. I'm not very good at math, Arlie. 7 of them came back. You know, get some experience, kid. Don't bother us. And the most exciting one that came back was from Bermuda. Now, here's a kid, you know, graduating college. The idea of a romance to go to Bermuda. I mean, I've never been away from home. So the first job I had was in Bermuda at ZBM Radio. And I brought rock and roll to that once quiet island. Before the Hammer got there, that's what they used to call me. Because of my speech. Hi, everybody. This is Bruce Mine. I speak staccato in those days. Much, you know, it's nice, a little different now. But in those days, I spoke with this great staccato thing, and they called me the Hammer. So my first job was Bermuda. Then I came back, and I worked for WINS.
Okay, now, in Bermuda, because of the way you speak, because of the way you are, all of your energy, you're so New York, a Brooklyn boy. Bermuda's very sedate. I mean, I've been to Bermuda. It's beautiful. But if anybody would be the opposite of what I would think somebody successful in Bermuda, it would be you.
You know, people like energy. I don't care how sedate somebody is. Put me in a room with them. I'll have them at my pace within 5 minutes. I get people crazy. I mean, I'll go on Good Day New York, and Jim Ryan, who's our anchor man, is very calm, does the news, and he's very proper. I go on next to him live. Within 3 or 4 minutes, he's at my pace. I get people crazy,
okay.
You know.
Okay, I see that.
I like energy, and I love to emit energy, and that's what I do. I have a show called Cruising America. Now, Cousin Brucey's a New Yorker. I'm in 200 markets now. I go all over this country, and I travel for Cruising America all over this country. And that is a CBS radio network show. It's syndicated, sent out by satellite. And I'll go into places like Morgantown, Virginia, or I'll go into Los Angeles or San Francisco, or I'll go into Cincinnati and Cleveland. They're all my people. And the energy's there. People like energy. They like it. They like to receive energy. It brings you up, makes you feel good.
True, okay, but Cruising America is now. That's today.
That's today.
That's part of what you're doing today. And as I mentioned, today you're busier than you were way back then.
Yeah.
But way back then is where it started. I mean, that's where it was put together. Now, here you are, Brooklyn boy, love radio. And you are on WINS radio, and you're only in your 20s at that point.
That's where I really learned to grow up.
But did that go to your head? Did you?
No, I'm going to tell you something, and I think if you interview people on the street, I'm the same. Talk to my mother. No, don't talk to her. She doesn't like me today. I feel I have not changed. Number one, I have never had the time to change. My energy is what I want to do. My energy is the love for my audience, the love for my craft, my art. And I really feel, I know I was put here by the Lord to do something, to transmit an energy. And that's what I do. I'm not a singer. I dance. I was the lousiest dancer in the world. I mean, I tried my dirty dancing. It didn't work. Couldn't get my foot down for a month. I'm here to transmit energy. And as I said, people enjoy getting energy. And this has not changed since the very beginning. You know, I'll tell you, every time I go on the air today, whether it be on television or radio, it's the first time. Yeah, that feeling is still good. It's not, oh, I got to go in and do another job. I got to schlep to the studio. No, I am on the air. I am on the air the first time, every time I go on, and nothing has changed. My body, my feeling hasn't changed. I've gotten more excited, a little crazier, I think. I am the happiest guy in the world.
You know, it's funny, and I will vouch for that. Off camera, off screen, off radio, in person, you're exactly the same. The energy, and the energy is contagious.
It's not a phony. You know, you can't fool an audience all these years. You know, I've been doing this. You know, I did a PBS special called Shake, Rattle, and Roll about a year ago. It's going to be on again very shortly, matter of fact. And I did the promos at PBS, and I'm standing in front of the camera, and the teleprompter's rolling. You know, they have the idiot cards, but now they have them electronic. And this thing is rolling, and it says something like, "Hi, this is Cousin Brucey. I've been broadcasting 30 years." And I look at the thing, I do a double take, and I say, "Stop the tape, right?" And I said, "Excuse me, but who the blankety blank said I've been doing this for 30 years?" And the writer comes out very sheepishly and puts out my book and says, "Well, if you started it 30 years," and I said, "My God, you're right. Yeah. I've been doing this 30 years." Yeah. And it's a romance. I love it so much.
It's a romance, but as in all romances, there are rocky roads along the way. Now, even at the beginning, WINS, suddenly there you are. You're very successful. I mean, that's when all the teenagers were listening to you, 7 to 11 spot, perfect time. And then suddenly, actually, I think you thought you would have that job forever. Yeah. Suddenly, after 4 years, you left WINS.
Well, there was a little political situation there with a fellow named Murray the K who wanted my position. And Murray passed away several years ago. And I always feel kind of bad talking about it, but Murray was not a very nice man. He was a very fine performer, and I got to give him credit, but he did a few things to me that should not be done by a fellow human being. He wanted that job, and he decided he would stop at nothing to get the job. And there was exchange of monies, and eventually he won. I had to leave, and I went down to Miami, and that's where my next adventure started for the next Cousin Brucey adventure. But I was at WINS for 2 years, and I thought I'd be there forever. Yeah. But you know something? Things happen for the better because of that Miami thing. Miami, I said thing, because I spent a year in Miami, which was like 10 years of my life. I'm a New Yorker, and it's very tough for a New Yorker to live anyplace else. Visit, yes, but not to live. We're a very strange breed. We really are. I go to L.A., I can handle L.A. for about 6 hours, and then I want to come home. I want to go home and touch my Fifth Avenue or my Park Avenue, my Brooklyn. I learn a lot. Every time I have an experience like that, I learn a lot. But it was not a textbook romance. I had some very tough times that I had to pull out myself. I mean, I had to fight myself.
Tough, and in Miami it wasn't great, but fortunately you did come back, and you came back to WABC, and that's where everything really started to take off.
Well, how would you like to stay in Miami, Arlene? I'll tell you something. And you know what broke the straw for me? I'll tell you a terrible thing. I mean, this is awful if we have time. I saw Santa Claus. It was Christmas, and Santa Claus was standing under a palm tree with a pink flamingo. I said, "That's it. Home." I mean, Santa Claus with a pink flamingo, that's ridiculous.
Okay, we're going to bring you home. We're going to take a break. And then we'll bring, thank God you came back. Okay, we're speaking with Bruce Morrow. Don't go away. We'll be back with lots more.
It's time for You Lost Your Life with your hosts, Christ Dummies, Vince and Larry.
Hi. Hello, and welcome to the show that proves if you don't buckle your safety belt, the loser is you.
That's right, Vince, and by not buckling up, you could end up in places you never dreamed.
Like traction!
Or the emergency room!
Plus, Larry, if you're not buckled up, you could maybe take a ride in a beauty like this. Stay tuned!
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
I was going to take a job with an engineering firm in New York. I got a better offer. I'm building schools overseas with the Peace Corps. The pace is a little slower than New York, but here I'm getting grassroots experience I couldn't get anywhere else. The way I look at it, the world can wait 2 years for another 40-story smoked glass high-rise.
Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
We're back here at CBS Radio with my special guest, Cousin Brucey. You know, we're talking about your life in radio, which is absolutely incredible. But it really started, the legend started, and you, as I mentioned in the introduction, you have become a legend. It started when you were on WABC Radio. I mean, absolutely incredible. You were in Miami, and I understand you got a telegram. In those days, people dreaded telegrams.
Sure.
You got a telegram.
They said, come on home.
Yeah.
Come on home. Because I left New York City very unhappily. I went to Miami. I told you with the pink flamingos and the Santa Clauses, and I flew home. I was married, my first marriage. I was married. It was just the whole thing just did not make me happy down there, and I wanted to come home. And eventually I got this telegram saying, come on home, kid. And I'll tell you, I flew out of there so fast. I mean, I would have walked home to get home to New York City. And it hasn't stopped since. It's been a wonderful life.
You know, but those were the days, I think you were with WABC for 13 years. I mean, those were the days that radio was really, flying high. There were so many changes that were happening. You were in the middle of it. But we're in a studio now. When you're in the studio, you're all alone. 3 hours, 4 hours.
Radio, local radio. Now, remember, you're dealing with a network show. I have engineers, producers, directors. We have people listening in Los Angeles. When I do my thing in New York, they satellite it. It's a very complex situation. There's lots of people involved. Local radio today, because of the nature of the beast, it's just me. I'm the producer, the director, the star, the engineer. I do everything. I do what they call combo work. I love it very much. It's always nice to have an engineer with you. I love that very much. Don't get me wrong, and a producer and a director. But there's something so nice when I'm flying this board. This is called a console, my console here, right? And I'm flying this alone. I am in control of my world. And I know when I'm pushing these buttons, I'm reaching, and that's part of my paint. This is my paintbrush, right? And the paintbrush is there. I love it. I love being alone on the air. It's a nice feeling.
Okay, but
those are not alone out there.
Okay, because a call-in show, people calling all the time, Cousin Brucey, and dedications and stuff like that. But you were out there too. You were at Palisades Amusement Park with your leopard skin tuxedo and matching shoes.
Well, I always wanted to be a little different, Arlene. I never wanted to do anything like everybody else. So I had a tailor in the Bronx. I'll never forget that. A Bronx designer. I said, I want something different. He said, what? I said, I don't know, get me a leopard. I was being a wise guy. Well, I came back the next day, and there was a leopard skin tuxedo with a suit for my dog that matched me. Muffin Morrow, the Wonder Dog. Dressed the same way I did at Palisades. Okay, Palisades every Saturday night, on the air 6 nights a week. Out 6 nights a week. When did you have time for family life? I made time. I work very hard to this day. I work 7 days a week this time. But, Jody and I always find time to be together. I have 3 beautiful kids. My son John is now going to be a doctor very soon. He's going to enter medical school, thank God, with a very expensive situation. Think, folks, before you send your kids to medical school. And I have my daughter, Paige, who's a film student at NYU, and my younger one, Mary, goes to high school here in New York City. We find time to be together. And I try every weekend, at least on Sunday. I try not to work 7 days every single weekend. Sometimes you have to. Jody and I go to inns, or we take the kids on vacations, and I make time. If you want to do something, you will make the time. I don't have as much time as I wanted to relax anymore. That's my problem. And I think that's a big mistake, and I have to somehow juggle the chess pins around and find more time to have a good time, because I have a lot of hobbies. And that's what makes me do. I am,
like what?
Photography. Oh, my love is photography. Well, I got to make time. The wintertime, this past winter, I have not. But come spring, and I'm getting there every spring, a young man's fancy turns to his cameras or something like that. And I will make time. I'll go on trips, and I take my camera, because there's nothing I'd rather do than have my cameras with me, videotape or my still cameras, and I create. I have 3 exhibitions right now, my photography, my photographs. I want to get you some so you can show them to people. My photographs are now being exhibited at Spectra Photo, which is a professional photography chain of stores. They have me in their windows, all my pictures. And up at a place called the Mohawk Mountain House in New Paltz, they have an exhibition of Cousin Brucey photographs. I take pictures of flowers. I love symmetrical patterns. I like that. That's what I take. I shoot pictures like that. And I'm on exhibition all the time.
There's so much to Cousin Brucey. I can't, that's one of the things that I didn't know. Every time I see you, there's something new that's happening. You talk about relaxing. I wonder, do people like you know how to relax?
I don't think so. I think we thrive on, I don't like to call it tension or stress. I think I have to be very busy. I have to have wall to wall. I know I have to have 24 hours a day to work. And there's a book coming out that they interviewed me for about celebrities with how they handle stress. I handle stress by giving myself stress. I think that's what it is.
You know, it's interesting. Okay, because some people really do work better on that.
I do.
You know, when you talk about a book coming out, we have your book, Cousin Brucey, My Life in Rock and Roll Radio. We haven't even touched on your life, but I hear that this may be a movie.
Well, 20th Century Fox took an option on it. And like they say in the business, the money's in the bank. And eventually they plan to make a movie. I talked to those people recently, and they're going to get a writer, and who knows?
Would you want to be in it?
Yeah, I want to be in it.
Okay, but it's interesting, the role that you would pick for yourself
I don't know
to be
yet.
in
I have
too.
to figure that out. Can't blame me. They never let that happen.
Well, you know, it's not fair. I mean, we'll wait for, we have to wait for the movie actually to see it. We can read the book, but we haven't even touched on the life of Bruce Morrow, on Cousin Brucey. I have to ask you now, will you come back next week? Can we please continue this interview, because we have to have a two-part interview with you.
Sure. I cannot stand things undone. And we're not done yet. Sure.
Okay, we haven't talked about your charity work for Variety, which is actually how
my
we
love.
met. You
My
know,
love.
what you're doing here at CBS, what you're doing on television. Haven't talked about your role in Dirty Dancing. You're in the movies. So you will come back next week.
I'll be back.
Okay. Please stay right there. I'll be right back because we have a few closing notes, but Cousin Brucey will definitely be back next week. We'll be right back after these messages.
Everyone makes mistakes, Matthew. Don't pay any attention to the other children.
For this bright 6-year-old, the ABCs have never been as simple as ABC. Where do you go when you're different from the other kids? He got help at a Center for Learning Disabilities. They got help from the United Way. All because the United Way got help from you. The United Way. It brings out the best in all of us.
The man, and dog.
For years, this man thought if he just tried hard enough, he could teach himself to read. Where do you go when you can't do it alone? He's getting help in a literacy program for adults. They got help from the United Way. All because the United Way got help from you. The United Way. It brings out the best in all of us.
I'm Arlene Herson, and I cannot believe how fast the time went with Bruce Morrow, Cousin Brucey. There is so much to this man. He is so incredible. You're just getting to see a little bit of what he does, because what he does is tremendous. Please come back with us next week. We will continue with the Bruce Morrow story. Hope to see you then. Good night.